Hello everybody, I'm Drew, and you are watching Nerdcraft. Well, I wanted to make a little video today for an idea that I had to make a little painterly effect with your materials. This usually isn't my sort of thing. I'm usually very interested in making my renders look realistic, but I had seen a few techniques that I really liked, and I wondered what would happen when I combined them. Today's video is not really a tutorial. I found that whenever I try to do tutorials, my perfectionism comes in and I can never finish it because it's never perfect and whatever. So I decided today's video, and probably most of my videos going forward, will probably be just watch me do Blender. And if you learn something from it, well then that's cool. The techniques that I wanted to try out today were by a YouTuber called Cody Gindi. Hopefully I'm getting his name right. Sometime back he came out with a video showing a technique of painting on your objects in a way that it will affect the shading of your material so that it looks like the objects in your scene are made up of a bunch of little paintbrush strokes. A little bit more recently he came out with another video with another technique that he found to kind of warp or shift over those little paintbrush strokes in your render so that all of the objects aren't perfectly straight like they would be otherwise, but they look kind of uneven and kind of slapped together like a person painted them. I wondered what would happen if we combined those techniques. Maybe that's something that he's planning on doing, but I wanted to try it myself. However, I wanted to try one more thing of my own, because with his, he essentially painted his objects manually, whereas I really don't like doing things manually. I love doing things procedurally with shader nodes so that I tell Blender what to do and it does stuff for me. And so I thought of a way of doing that. So I set up a little scene here with a room that hopefully will throw some kind of nice light on our subjects, and I'm going to go into the material for Suzanne. What I want to do is make a little group node you can add to any material, so that whatever material you set up, essentially you can just plug this group node into it and it'll just automatically add brush strokes. The way I'm going to do that is by using a Voronoi texture. I think most of us are familiar with the Voronoi texture, but instead what we want these patterns to do is to like follow the shape of our object. If we control shift click on this to see the one that says position, all of the little cells are like lined up using the texture coordinates of left of X, Y, Z, whatever. But there's another way that we can do this that will disrupt the normals, which is what Cody did in his videos. Let me show you here. So if we plug something into these normals, you know, we can add a bump map or whatever. And this is actually what that looks like. If I just press Control T with the Node Wrangler add-on turned on, I can get rid of that. I just want to use it for this. If we view the normals, everything on one side of the object is red, the other side isn't. Everything on the top is blue, not everything on the bottom isn't. Everything on the back is green, everything on the front isn't. And we notice even like in the little crevices back here, so it's not like just all on one side of the object, it's all of the faces of the surface of that object that are facing a particular direction. They get that color. Of course, this isn't for the colors, it's just data, and this is just visualizing a data in a way that we usually don't. But this is what is in this normal here. So if we plug like that normal into our shader, nothing happens because literally that's what the default is. I'm still doing this like a tutorial. Oh well, anyway. I just can't help explaining things. What this Voronoi texture usually does is it basically uses like this generated, which gives us a similar XYZ, except in this case it's like everything on one side of the object is green or red or blue, and it's not with the faces that are just facing that direction. It's just this side and that side of the object. But if we take that normal thing and plug that into the texture coordinates of the Voronoi, then we see it kind of takes the normal texture coordinates as they were, but like Voronoi-fies them. And this kind of gives us the basis of like the same thing that Cody gave us by like painting it by hand, except in this case we don't have to paint it ourselves, we just plug this texture. Let's see what happens. I don't know why it looks like that. It's just Eevee artifacts, I guess. And let's plug this position from the Voronoi into there. Yeah, you see it affects the shading. Let's try to make the brush strokes kind of bigger by turning the scale down, which makes the brush strokes bigger. Then yeah, it breaks it up in this kind of cool way. However, there is a problem that I anticipate, which I'll get to a little bit later when I apply it to another object. For now, I'm going to take these guys and I'm going to put them in a little group, and I'm gonna call it brush stroke normals. How do you spell normal? N-A-L. That's it. It's not L-E. Let's go over to this vase over here. I can add a material to it, give it some nice color, and then if I add that group, brush stroke normal, and if I plug that into there, then we see it chops it up into these nice brush strokes too. So that's pretty cool. Now that we have this in a group node, anything that we do here will be affected in the other materials that we use this on. So like if I just mess around with the smoothness, because I don't want the brush strokes to be super sharp at their edges, I want it to look sort of, I don't know, painterly. I guess that's the whole point of this. However, there's a problem that I just mentioned, that if we add this same thing to another object that has flat sides, like let's say let's make our shelf here. If we add our group that we just made into the normals here, we notice that we don't get any brush strokes. And the reason for that is this is using the normals. In other words, these two have curved surfaces, but since this one is flat, that entire face is just facing the same way. So any brush stroke that is put on it is just one giant brush stroke for that whole side. Kind of all we really need to do is just add another Voronoi texture, plug object into this so that the brush strokes are the same size for every object. Let's use an add. I'm going to add the color. So not the position, I'm just going to add the random blotches of colors because this is not tied into the normal. It's just the Voronoi texture as it is, and in fact if I turn the size up you can see the Voronoi blotches getting bigger. But what this also does is it actually disrupts the paintbrush pattern that we had even on a curved surface, which you might think is bad, but actually it's good because it keeps all of the little paint blotches on even a curved surface from being completely straight. It kind of warps them. However, it's too strong right now. It's making this flat surface look like all of the little cobblestone pieces are like at completely different angles, whereas we want it to look like it's flat, but like whoever painted it just had slightly different colors on his paintbrush every time he painted it. I'm going to add another vector math node, change it to scale, and now we can lessen the effect. See, then we just get kind of subtle blotches of color there. Then it should do the same thing to our wall. I think if you look at this side you can see it. Kind of don't like that you can't really see the brush strokes on like that wall specifically, which is the one that I want my scene to be featuring, but it is what it is. The only thing with this technique being is I'm not like painting the brush strokes myself. They are just patches of Voronoi texture, so they land up looking a little bit more like cobblestone patches, but I'm okay with that. I think we're ready for the next part, which is disrupting the render. I want to do that in the group too. That way I don't have to do that for every single. What we're going to do is we're going to add an AOV. I'm going to call this displacement. I'm going to put mint on it. This will create another pass, another layer when we render, so that when we take it into the compositor, we can do some fancy stuff with it. I'm going to turn this into my compositor. Oh, I think I need to, yeah, I might need to look it up. Scene view layers, shader AOV, that's what we want. Add a new one. Don't we name it? Yeah, there we go. Should probably just copy it from here so I know that it's the same. Let's set up a render. So let me grab my where the heck is my camera? Oh, there's my camera. And this should work both in Eevee and cycles. Save this, very important. Don't forget to save. Press F12. I don't know how many samples I had this set to, so I don't know how long I'm going to be sitting here waiting for it to render, but it's Eevee, so it should be quick. But I don't use Eevee a lot because I like cycles, because I like realism. Let's just see if this AOV thing works. I forgot how to get my backdrop to show up. Oh, I need a viewer. I need a viewer node. I don't use the compositor because, I don't know, I just don't. This is the regular render. And this is that displacement thing. And this is another thing I wanted to do differently than Cody did. He just used a black and white map, which is fine. But that will only displace our paintbrushes in like one direction. If we have all of the colors, we can use those different colors to displace our paintbrush strokes in different directions. If I remember correctly, and I might have to bring up my old blend file to see how I did this last time, but let's add a displace file. I'm gonna bring up my old, see what I have going on here. We're going to use this displace node. This moves our whole picture over, and we can do the same thing for up and down as well. But if we plug a texture into this, then instead of moving the whole picture over, it'll move parts of the picture over. This doesn't go into both of these, so we have to split them up. Use a separate color. I'm going to use red for the X, and I'm going to use green for the Y. And blue, well, that just won't be used. I'm going to add a math node, and my custom keyboard shortcut doesn't work in the compositor, so I have to do this myself. And I'm going to do that down here. That way, instead of moving everything like to one side and or up, it'll move it left or right, up or down, because the middle, we're subtracting 0.5, so it's going below 1 and whatever. So that I can control exactly how much is this displacement. I'm going to set this to multiply, and I'm going to plug this in here. I'm going to add a value. Oops, this has a different, I forgot that happens. If you press V on your keyboard, you zoom into the background. Yeah, it's fine. Value node, because that is what usually happens when I press V with my own custom keyboard shortcut. Control both the X and Y. Okay. Oh, you know what? I plugged the wrong thing in here. I have to plug displacement in there, and already we see something kind of cool is happening. I'm going to render this one more time. So let me make the scale of the brush strokes smaller. Yeah. And now we see the brush strokes on the wall. In fact, that might be a little bit too strong. I had a mix node with a little fine control. The brush strokes on the wall went from being non-existent, and then now that I'm messing with it, now it's strong. And I'm going to give that a render. So now let's see what happens when we turn the strength of this up. Yeah, we see these little weird things happening there. Subtle little brush strokes. There's a problem, and I did find a fix for this. There's like a double edge there. It's because the face on one side is being shifted this way, and the shape on the other side is being shifted that way, and around the edges it's really easy to see. The fix that I found for that is to blur our displacement first. That way there's like a little bit of a transition in those edges. It also kind of tidies up the other brush strokes. Put this into a group right now. I'm going to add a couple of inputs. Give it a minimum of like 0. We'll give it a default of 10. This one is going to be distortion, and I'm going to set that to 10 pixels. And then this one, I'm going to call it smoothness. I'm going to make it into a factor from 0 to 1, and I'm going to make the default 1, and therefore I have to make it 1 out here. I'm going to call this paint distortion, or brush stroke. And let me just rename this to displacement map. We hide the value from the outside just because. So what I want to do, plug my distortion that is in pixels, and then here we can turn up how strong the distortion is. I want that to control my blur as well, so I could plug that into here. But of course it's not doing anything because there's no blurring happening, so I'm just going to plug in 1 pixel. But then that 1 pixel of blur will be multiplied by whatever I have this, so now it's blurring it by 16 pixels. And then if we don't like how smooth it makes it, then we can turn that down. Except it doesn't, because I haven't made it do that yet. So let's add another math node, and we're going to make this multiply, and I'm going to multiply that by the smoothness. So now if the smoothness is all the way up, it'll blur it by the same exact number of pixels that we are having it distorted by, and then we can turn that smoothness down if we want to have those weird edges again. So if we mute this node by pressing M, yeah, we see that's the after, and that's the before. So it kind of warps up the paint brush strokes so there aren't perfectly straight edges. And I think that's basically all. I mean, if I really wanted to, I could go in and try to make even more complex things. I could make an animation. Oh, you know what would be cool? You know what would be cool is if we made a scene where there was like my perfectionism. But I think that's basically it. So yeah, Cody Gindy, if you're watching this video, thanks for the ideas. Go check Cody Gindy's YouTube page out. I think I will have a link to his channel in the description, and I'll probably make this file available so that, like, if you want to use these nodes, one for the compositor here, and then this for the material. I think what I'll do is I'll make it available for free. It's on my Patreon, but I like free things, so like I think other people like free things. But if you want to support me on Patreon, that's cool. I haven't been doing a lot on Patreon, which makes me feel bad, but I'm trying to get back onto that. And one last thing, January is going to be a special month because I am starting something kind of cool. I hope will be cool. I got to talking with another artist on the Blender Artists Forum, and we thought, wouldn't it be cool if there was a month-long daily art prompt like Inktober. If you don't know what Inktober is, that's okay, because I'm gonna make another video about this. But basically, we're going to have a word for every day of January. Anyone who wants to participate in Blinduary 2025, the first time we're doing it, all you have to do is make something in Blender that is inspired by that word. So like for ripple is the word for day one. So you can make a nice little render of some ripples or some lily pads in the water, whatever you want to do. It's not a contest or anything, it's just, hey, let's everybody make something different, and you can post it on Blender Artists Forum or on Instagram or here on YouTube or whatever. Just share the hashtags, and I thought that would be fun. 30 days might seem like a lot, but maybe if we keep it simple. I know we're all busy. Even if you can't do all 31 days, that's okay. If you can maybe do one day a week or the first 2 weeks or something like that, let's just see if we can have fun. Like I said, I'm going to make a more official video about that, but for now, go check out Cody Gindi, and we'll see you all in the next video. Oops, my alarm is going off telling me to go to bed, but no, I am recording a video right now. What we're going to do is we're going to add an AOV. What I'm going to do, I don't know if you're following along, so I don't know if I should say this is what we're going to do. I might just be speaking for myself, which is fine. That's cool, but if you follow along, that's even cooler. Yeah, it's always good to have textures stick to our fish, you know? Very important. This is the real stuff, folks. This is how it usually goes. That's why I'm not good at recording tutorials, because I have to look up tutorials to figure out what I'm doing in the first place. Like that, and I'm gonna move him. I guess the camera is a him now. And right away my screen turns gray because I have a dual monitor system and I need to buy a new computer. Why is it still gray? That's mean, Blender. Why are you so mean? Why are you so mean? Are you just bullying me because I need a new computer? And that's because... well, it's because if we made a scene where there was like a canvas and like you can tell an artist had been painting on this canvas, and you zoom in on the canvas, you zoom in on your canvas and you see like your 3D scene, and it's not a painting anymore, it's 3D, like that would be cool. But maybe I'll do that later before I upload this video. But if not, then I probably shouldn't say that, because then everybody will be wanting me to do that and they'll be disappointed that I don't. And I'm very awkward about asking for money, because I don't like doing that, so it's awkward. So long. Bye. I don't know how to end videos.